Okay, my fellow Americans, this is Red Bull, and I have a special guest.
I am the roast, and let's
We're
talk about the
my
Byzantines.
Letterboxd top 4.
Now you see.
Okay, so my Letterboxd top 4.
So the thing is, like,
I have 4.
Letterboxd in common media. It's
where
often
you
the
can-
Roman
you can
Empire
review
that is portrayed,
movies,
right?
And
It's
like,
always
basically a lot of people
men
just
think
do,
about
like,
the Roman
shitty
Empire.
little, like,
But why don't we ever
like,
think about
one
the Eastern
word,
Roman
like,
Empire?
one
You know what I'm
line
saying?
thing,
So
right?
like,
and so you can
it's
also
just
take
strictly
a top
better
4
because
and, like, put
Rome
it on your
evolved
account.
from
So
a
my
republic
top 4,
into an empire.
My first one on my top 4 is
off
Too
of
Long
a
Too, Thanks for Everything, Julie
tyrant
Newmar,
and a dictator.
which is
Meanwhile,
it's a movie from like the
when
90s,
Theodosius
the late 90s.
and the Theodosian Code
It
came around
has
and it
Patrick
started
Swayze,
to officialize the
Wesley
Eastern
Snipes
Orthodox
and John Leguizamo, and they're playing drag
Christian
queens,
religion
right? And like
as the
Patrick
you know,
Swayze and Wesley
the
Snipes are like
binding
they're
force
good. They're good
for the
drag queens.
empire.
Like they're good at
It
it.
started to
And they
create
like
a
won
lot
this thing. They
of
like won
unity
this thing.
and the
and basically
religion
they
in Rome
like
is just it's
they
just
win this
not
competition
comparable
to another competition, but then
the
they feel bad. So they start
Orthodox
like
tradition.
taking
You know what I'm
this.
saying? So like
They start taking this this like John Leguizamo.
so they start
under their
taking
wing. And
parts
so they,
of Italy back
they
once you get
go
to
on a
the
road trip, and
fourth
they were like,
century,
"Oh
right?
my God, we should buy like this cool car
And
because they're drag queens."
I think the best
style over substance.
example
And it breaks down
of
in the middle of nowhere,
Byzantine
and
greatness
they have to like
has
act
to
like
be
they're women.
Empress Theodora
But then they
and
just like
Emperor
talk like
Justinian.
trying to like get them. And
basically,
it's called
Total
Too Long
power
Too, Thanks for
couple in
Everything,
history.
Julie Newmar, because Patrick Swayze's
The
character
big thing that
finds
came
a
out of the reign
picture
was that it was
this restaurant that says
one
Too Long Too,
church,
Thanks for Everything, Julie
one
Newmar, and they
religion,
use it as like their like
one
motivation
empire.
for going. And
so they
it's
went
really like it's a
and
nice
they really
moment.
decided to
And
expand.
They make it there. They make friends with
control of
everyone
the crown,
in.
but
They
not
make friends with
in
everyone
the same
in
tyrannical
the
fashion that the
town.
Romans did.
And then everyone's like,
They still
they
had
think
the
that they would be
thematon
drag queens,
system,
but then like
which
at
is
the end they're
essentially
like,
you
you
have
know what,
provincial
I'm a drag queen
governments
too, and they're like all
and
drag queens, and then they have a little party.
basically
and then
because
John
Greece has always been
Leguizamo,
a place of
Patrick
city
Swayze and Wesley
states,
Snipes
and
took
so
under their wing
the
at very
local
beginning.
identity and the local
John
policies
Leguizamo
are always
ends up
going to
winning
be
Drag Queen of America,
some of the
and
most
that's at the end of the
important
movie, and it's
parts
so
of
sweet,
the
and
civilization.
Julie Newmar is there at the end,
And so they maintain this system
and
while still having forging a way forward.
My second one,
especially
is Palm
considering
Springs.
the
Palm Springs came out on Hulu
tumultuous
on like
time of the
2020, so like no one watched it.
early Christianity
They should have watched it,
generally
but no one watched
is
it.
wrought
And it's
with
Andy Samberg,
a lot
so it's The Lonely
of,
Island, and they
views of which
make this movie.
are a little bit
and
confusing, a little
Andy
bit
Samberg and Kristen
too idealistic. They don't
Milioti,
really
I think.
do any of the
she was
roles
the
that
hot
they
lady
really
in
need
Penguin.
to be doing. And that's what the
they're like
orthodoxy started as a way
at a
to
wedding, right? They're at a wedding, and Andy Samberg is stuck in this loop, this time loop, like Groundhog Day time loop at a wedding.
I mean, the nature of nature. To be,
he ends
to
up
be frank.
accidentally bringing Kristen with her,
And so
or with
he
him into the
actually
time loop.
ends
So now
up
they're both stuck in this time loop.
combining
And she's like, I want to get out. And he's like,
some
I've
of
been
the
here for
elements
40
while
years.
leaving
I don't want to leave. I
it,
can't. I don't know how.
to the people to decide
and
what is their
Andy
true
Samberg
belief,
previously
which I
trapped
think is
J.K.
one of the most
Simmons also in the
functional
time loop.
forms
So
of
they're all three in this time
religious
loop, and like
governance
the
that
only
has
thing
ever existed
that they know how to
in
do is
in
like
the history of the
exist
world,
and live
quite
this day
frankly.
over and over. And J.K. Simmons eventually like gives up.
This
and is
continues
like,
for
I'm actually
the
gonna
Byzantine
just
Empire
live my
lives
life every
for
day. This is a good day.
a
I'm just gonna
millennia.
stay at home. And Andy Samberg
And
is just like,
only
this.
when the
I'm
Ottomans
just
come
gonna
back
be
around
lazy
and the Ottoman
forever.
conquest start
And
to
Kristen's like, I
whittle
love
down,
the
because
hell
the empire
out.
was getting whittled
And it
down
turns out
by
that Kristen the
plenty
night
different
before had
forces
also
over
like
time.
slept with it's her sister's wedding, and she had slept
the
with
Ottomans
her
really just
sister's
dealt the
fiance.
killing blow to all of
So
it.
that's why she's like, oh my god, I hate
And
this
yet,
day. I can't. Every day I wake up in my
survival
sister's
of the
fiance's
empire
bed for years and
was
years and years.
not solely based
So she
in
leaves Andy Samberg
the
alone
emperor
for
and
like
the
10
crown,
years, I think. It's like
but also
canonically
the
like 10
sentiment
years.
of
And
the
she
people.
goes
It was
and
one
every
of
day
the
for this 10 in the
most
time loop, in the
functional
time loop.
forms of
She learns like quantum physics.
theocratic
And
democracy.
she learns basically like,
to have ever
she gets
existed.
like a master's degree while stuck in a time loop, basically.
And
she like she goes back, and Andy Samberg's like, where the fuck have you been for 10 years?
right,
and
and
then
that's
she-
when Belisarius
And she gets
come after 10 years. Like,
figures
where
out
have
how
you
to
been,
just, like, explode
Belisarius?
where they
And he
came.
decides, you know what?
She has to explode
We're going
where
to
they
reclaim
came
the empire.
to like get out of the time loop, and then they
And
wake up in the time loop, and
if
they go
I
to
were in
this
a time
house
loop,
that Andy Samberg
then I would
Andy Samberg was going to.
then I would love
Andy
to
Samberg
go
was
back
going to.
and you know,
he gets-
kind of
they're swimming on it after they
not
explode
necessarily
the thing.
interview
And the
some of the
family
greats,
shows up.
like, you know,
So Andy
Anna
Samberg's like, I guess the
Karenina
family
and,
came back on November 10th.
some of the
'cause
great
now we're
writers.
out. Oh, by the way, it's on my
St.
birthday. The
Basil,
time loop is
Gregory,
on my
all that.
birthday. It's November 9th.
I think
Anyways,
it
that's
would
Palm
be the
Springs.
best.
Anyways, The Thing. That's
so
my third favorite movie.
I think going back and just being
so The Thing is basically like
in the environment
the horror movie. Like if you ask a horror fan like what's the horror movie, they're gonna go The Thing.
And
so
the
The
nature
Thing
of
is basically from
how
the 80s.
you can have
it's Kurt Russell playing the most beautiful man you've ever seen,
which is meant to
while he's going
provide
crazy,
unity
basically.
while still allowing
they're
people
in, like,
to specialize, have their own
Antarctica,
views.
and they're like in
and
Antarctic.
I think that's
like
I think
research
that
center,
is
and it's like
the
10 dudes.
best way because it
this
puts the
dog
onus on the people
who is like a messenger
to
dog
determine
comes up,
what they
and they think it's
what
one of their
exactly
dogs, but
they
it's
want,
actually an
while
alien
still
disguised as
having
a
that
dog. The
moving
alien
forces
dog like
and
explodes
unifying force in
and kills
society.
all the other dogs, and then like starts infecting
And
people.
so,
And like
in
the
this
thing
way,
is, the
I
aliens
think
don't know that they're aliens.
over time,
and
the Byzantines have kind of
it spreads like
flown under the
microscopically
waves
through like blood and crap, so they
of
don't
history.
even know, like,
You're right.
who's
It's
dead,
not
who's
quite
alive.
part of Western history.
At a
It's not
certain
quite
point,
part of
Kurt Russell
Middle
got
Eastern
sent for like
history.
days and days, and he's still like the only one that we know for sure
And yet,
as
I still think it's one of the
as
most
the audience that
it has some of the
isn't
most
like
important
an
lessons
alien. And like there's a scene
determining
called
what
the blood
a
test
government should be
scene,
doing.
and like the blood test
What
scene basically
a
they like know that they can't.
faith-based-
The only
what
way to
faith-based
like kill them is
government
like fire.
should be doing.
So they like
Not
test
saying
the
that we
blood.
need to
They like
revert
kidnap
back to that
a
sort of
kid and like
system,
put it
but
in the blood to like see
it's
who it is.
undeniable that it
and,
is
like,
a system
it's one of the most
works, and so if
tense
this was
scenes. It's like
know,
arguably like the
if it
most
had
tense
any,
scene. Like if you like look up like best like tension
in a way, a lot of the
examples,
things
like
in
you're
the
gonna
United
find the
States
blood
right
test
now
scene, right?
are
And
kind
so,
of
you know, the ending of the movie is actually pretty open.
kind of like
you don't know
religions,
if
to
Kurt
be
Russell
honest.
dies. You don't know if the well, you know Kurt Russell dies,
all
but
these
you don't know
sorts of,
if
you
like
know,
the
grand
alien dies, the alien survives or not. And so
and,
you go in and it's like
ideal, you know,
the
ideals.
you know, and you can
form
watch it a second time and be like, watch it the whole time with the idea that Kurt Russell is also an
much
alien.
the same way that a religion
and it's like it's
does.
a way
I
to
think
like
if we were to
rewatch the
learn
movie as like a
from
completely different
how
plot.
you can have
And
a
that's why it's so good. And all the effects and
right,
practical
this is what,
effects.
not unquestionable.
So like
that's
you know,
a full
it's
term.
really cool to watch and just see
Have
how
a
all the effects are
mainline
done because it's the
thing that
80s.
unifies
And
everyone,
it's just
right?
it's John
and at
Carpenter's
the base of the
thing.
belief,
It's his,
while also
it's
allowing
his
people
magnum
to
opus.
go and specialize. And then if they get enough steam
know,
behind what they're
it
saying,
could
they
be
can
recency
bring that to
bias,
their
but
local
I would say that my
thematic. In the United States, we of
fourth
course have
favorite movie
states.
right now on my Letterboxd
And
top 4
Get that
is
legislation.
Sinners. I've
get
seen
certain
Sinners
legislation
6
through
times since it came
that
out.
supports
Since
the
it came
beliefs
out.
and the
6 times. It came out 2 months ago, and I've seen it 6 times, 5 of which
I
in
personally
theaters.
am very much
And,
a pluralist. And
I
think
honestly don't even
part
want to
of
spoil
why
it, but I will because I've committed to the bit.
You know, I
So,
respect the
you know,
Byzantines so much. Is because
the
I
first
think
hour
a
is we're
pluralistic
following
system is
the
the best
smokestack
way to
twins,
really the best way to have a government.
We're
Yeah,
following Sammy, who's
you know,
like a
small
sharecropper in Mississippi.
local governments that represent
And
that better represent
he,
the wants of
he
their
wants to get out,
individual
he wants to play
people.
music.
Meanwhile, a federal
his
government
cousins,
is
the
kind of meant
smokestack
to
twins,
be that
are
right. It's
setting up, like,
very
a
much the
juke
same.
joint,
It's
like
the
a
same
club.
unifying
And
force.
so he's like,
And
I'm gonna go
quite
play with them.
frankly,
And like the first hour is them gathering everyone
the way
to
that
play.
U.S. politics has
They're
been
gathering
going,
like the
it's
cast basically.
entirely whether
And
one
like
side
after
is
like an hour, we
controlling
do like
the
a really
narrative
harsh
across the entire
tone
nation.
shift into like a
In
straight up
ways
like
that
monster,
just
like
doesn't
Dusk Till Dawn
represent
monster
large
movie
swaths
where
of
they're
the
like
population.
they're
And
stuck
so you
in
have some
the
people who receive these huge benefits
club that
they
they
don't
just
need,
made,
whether
and
that be
the
elites
vampire
or
like ends up like killing like everyone basically,
unemployed or
killing
whatever.
They basically have like an army
groups
outside. They're
of
basically
people
trying
that
to
you wanna
survive.
point
But
out.
it has this like
They
other
get these
layer
huge benefits
of
that
music
they
and history
can't
under
really
it.
process, and then you leave the other ones out to
idea
dry.
is, like, the main
just
vampire
doesn't.
villain
There's no
is
sense
Irish,
to
and he
it,
got
right?
his culture
Have
taken
a
away
little
from
bit of
him.
specialized
But now he's essentially doing the same
assistance
thing
here,
by trying to
and have a little bit
assimilate
here
all of these Black
in ways
Americans
that
into their own
represent the
culture.
entire
And
states can get behind. You know,
there's
each of
a
the
whole
individual
lot of
states, I
layers
should
to
say.
it, but the music is wonderful, the visuals are
And
wonderful. There's two
in
Michael
that
B.
sense,
Jordans.
I think that we can loop back around to
the vampires do an
the-
Irish gig, which is like fucking sick.
So I think that we need to really
yeah.
put the Byzantines
And you
in,
know,
in a more
my
modern
friend actually
context.
watched A
Because
Prisoner of
a lot of
Azkaban 30
the
times
ideas are
in the
outdated.
past like month and a half.
Orthodoxy,
So I
although
don't
it is
feel
on
that
the
bad about
rise
having
in
seen
terms of
Sinners
different
6
Christian
times.
groups,
And plus, I'm supporting art,
faith and
and I'm
religion
supporting
overall has been
non-sequels.
declining.
I'm anti-sequel
And
and I'm
so-
anti-remake.
yes,
Yeah,
it has
that's,
been growing,
yeah,
but
that's,
it doesn't represent a huge swath of the Christian population, and so
right.
in
So,
that
anyways,
sense,
I also
in that
I
sense, I
watch a
think
lot
that
of
we can. It's not quite applicable.
animated
You know, we have to take a little
movies,
bit of effort.
my favorite animated movie
Such
is
as
actually
building off of what Char is saying.
building off of what the
if
Rose
we
is
have
saying,
animated movies that really
pretty sick. And my favorite animated
really
movie is of course The Incredibles, because The Incredibles is essentially just a family drama, but it's made into
The Incredibles, you see, is a great representation.
But like, if you watch
it's kind of what I'm talking about, because it does have a lot of
good
ideas about goodness
drama.
and
it just happens to be in a different format than most family dramas.
Heroes, all this stuff. Fundamentally, The Incredibles is about ideals in the same way that we've been talking about religion
the lack of attention
big
and
philosophical movements,
and how a family can survive
stuff like that.
hardships, and even if
so,
the hardship happens to be superheroes or superpowers, we're still.
I think that we can learn a lot if we start communicating
everything's a metaphor
with
for
our
everything.
art
But the
and our
second half is
metaphors
also like a sick,
to
like,
really get these ancient
and, like,
ideas to really
you
pop
watch it
out
and you
in
don't go
the
in
modern
thinking
sense,
that
because
it'll
you
be
can't just lift them
what it
and bring them
is,
into the
but,
modern
like,
day. That's just not how it works, and that's not how education works. You know what I'm saying? So I think that there's a lot that we can learn from trying to communicate things through art and through, modernizing some of the lessons.
Through art, which film is art.
Film is
Absolutely,
yes. Absolutely art.
Yes.
I think that's a really pertinent
that was
point.
a great, wonderful talk.
Yeah.
We'll see you next year, my fellow Americans.
My fellow Americans.
My fellow Americans.